Hello and welcome to On the Record. COVID-19 has done more than just created a healthcare crisis for us. Our lives have been interrupted and even transformed in so many ways. Unprecedented long lines at grocery stores, banks, utility companies and other essential businesses. And worse, a deterrent to paying bills. We have watched the digitalization and technology move from an option to a necessity. Almost overnight, businesses in the Bahamas and customers have moved from conventional means to being on the line to now having payments and services and products easily available online. Joining me tonight are the representatives from these essential businesses who have responded quickly to the realities of COVID-19. Tonight on the Record, we discuss from on the line to online. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Our discussion begins on the other side of this break. The project really pays itself.
Correct.
They set up
at the conference, more at the school.
As a journalist, I always have to focus on the facts, and sometimes that means going to investigate for myself. On the Record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. right here on RTV.
This is On the Record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. It wasn't long after government announced the COVID-19 emergency orders that officials at Bahamas Power and Light made the commitment to suspend disconnections for those who were affected by or lost their jobs because of this pandemic. But there was still the challenge of getting the revenue from those who are still able to pay. Tonight I'm joined by my guest, Dr. Donovan Moxey. He's the chairman of Bahamas Power and Light Company. Wearing a couple other hats tonight, but we're going to start with BPL. Welcome back.
Thank you.
How has this decision to suspend the disconnections for those who cannot pay affected your bottom line?
It's affected our revenue collection by about 30 to 35%. Normally in the month of April, we typically collect about $40 to $42 million in revenues. And we collected about slightly, maybe 30, 31. And so we were down about $11 million for the month of April. So that really affected us. And for the month of, the month of March, the month of April, we're pretty much trending the same way, where we're seeing potential shortfalls of around $12 million in revenues.
How is that going to affect your ability to operate?
It significantly does affect us. And so one of the things, obviously, with a government-owned corporation, you can rely on the Ministry of Finance to provide support. Now, we don't like to go there all the time. Obviously, we need to be self-sustaining. And so one of the things that we did do and are doing is encouraging those Bahamians who can pay to come in and pay their bill.
Which brings me right to my next question. Why should those who are able to pay their electricity bills? Why is that so important to you?
It's extremely important because the organization needs to continue to run. We still have very, very significant bills, particularly in our fuel cost and even our general operating cost. And so we're providing electricity. Obviously, we pay you, we bill you in arrears, and so we bill you for the services you've already consumed. And so from our perspective, we would certainly like to get those bills paid.
You mentioned fuel. At a time when fuel prices globally are in the negative, are you taking advantage of this opportunity to buy future supply?
Yes. There's a couple of things that we need our audience to understand. First of all, when we buy fuel, we typically have a 60-day supply. So the bill that you would see this week or this month, that reflects fuel that's about 60 days old that we had to purchase 60 days ago. So what we are doing now is we're purchasing fuel at the lower cost, and we do plan on fuel hedging as well, so that we can have some degree of price stability.
Tell us what is fuel hedging.
Fuel hedging really is a financial contract. So what you can do is you can participate in fuel hedging either using swaps or using options. And so when you look at the risk associated with each of them, the option is basically the way to go. Now, what does that mean? It means that what you do is you go on the option market and you agree to a contract to pay for fuel at a certain price in the future. With the option, you actually pay for that ability. It's almost like an insurance policy. And so at the time when you have to actually make the purchase or take delivery, you make a choice. You either can buy it at the option price if the actual strike price is higher, or you have the option to buy it at a much lower price. So the option essentially gives you the insurance policy to essentially get the lowest price at the time when you actually make the purchase.
Any idea, or can you say sort of how far in advance or how much supplies? And this all comes down to, can I look forward to my bills being lower in the future?
That depends on a number of factors, but what you want to do, you can essentially hedge out 3 to 5 years. But you have to really look at your volumes, because you have to remember that once you enter into those contracts, you're committed. So that option price you're paying up front. And what we do is you go through a volumetric analysis of your consumption. And so based on how the curves look, and again, I'm getting a little technical here, but when you look at the pricing curves, the future curves, you make certain determinations on what you want to pay for an option and where you believe the price of fuel is going to be at that time. So it's a pretty complex process.
I got it. As we sit here, thousands of people remain at home every day, myself included. I work from home.
Right.
My air conditioning is going.
Right.
My appliances are going.
That's right.
There's already and it's getting hotter. There's no doubt about it. The consumption is increasing.
That's correct.
Even now. Yet, people still complain of power outages. We're still having some outages. You're operating a new multi-million-dollar plant, recently commissioned. Why are we still experiencing these outages?
Great. That's a great question. I think what the public needs to understand, there are two ways, there are two key components in getting electricity to you. There's obviously the generation piece, which Station A solved a huge problem for us. So we have 132 megawatts available to us. And then the second is really transmission and distribution. And one of the things that we've told the Bahamian public is, yes, we're fixing generation, but transmission and distribution still has hiccups and issues that we need to fix. So the outages that you would have seen in the last several weeks or months tend to be isolated to areas where we've had transmission and distribution issues. And typically it's been, cable faults that have arisen, and we quickly go in and fix those issues. And so we've told the public is any time that you have an issue, call our customer service line, which is called BPL, and we'll come out and fix.
Bottom line, Donovan, do we have enough generating power to get us through the summer? There is nothing worse than a summer without electricity. And we all remember very vividly what we would have gone through
last summer.
That's
correct. Our intention is not to repeat last summer. So what we've done with the new 130 megawatt plant and with all of the generators that we finally were able to run through the normal maintenance program, our summer peak is around 260. Our intention is to have around 360 to 380 megawatts of power available. So we'll be between 80 to 100 extra megawatts of power. And so that's what we're planning on in terms of being able to alleviate the generation issues.
Worst case scenario, if we're still stuck in these conditions during the summer, we're all going to be home.
Yes. What we've seen here with this is that, yeah, there is a shift where you see the increased use of electricity by the residential customers. And obviously there's a decrease on the business side as well. But overall, what we've seen in the last 6 to 8 weeks is there's a consistent demand that we would normally expect this time of year. The only difference is it shifted from most of that being on the business side to now being shifted to residential side.
Think about that. A lot of with the major resorts now being closed and a lot of businesses. So I guess there was some balance there.
Yeah, there's a balance there as well. So saying that too as well, what consumers need to look for is your consumption. Now, typically during this time of year, the consumption is not high on the residential side. But since there have been a lot of shift now to home-based work, you're going to see your consumption go up.
Yeah,
so
I can tell you.
Consumers need to be aware of that.
Yeah, I'm running things all day long. I know other people are as well.
Right.
So you've heard it, folks. Look for your consumption to go up. How have you had to adjust your business model?
Yes. Where we are with BPL, we've always had online payments available. But a lot of consumers prefer to walk in and pay in person, whether it's the mall or some of the other services outlets that we've utilized. Well, obviously with COVID-19, that whole system has essentially been upended. So what we've done is we've really focused on really improving and updating our online bill payment process. And so what we encourage people to do is go to our website, sign up for online bill payment. We have our call center open now, normal business hours. I believe it's from 8 a.m. to about 7 p.m. in the evenings. And so you can call, get registered, get a PIN in order to activate your account. And then if you have a debit or a credit card, you can actually pay your BPL bill online.
Mm-hmm. Has it been working? Have people been taking advantage of it?
Yes, we've seen a shift moving forward to online payment. And what I'd like to do is just personally thank all of those Bahamians who are able to pay and actually came in and pay. And we do have Bahamians who come in and pay in person for whatever reason. There's certain people that just prefer to feel that physical receipt when they do pay, and there are others who essentially take advantage of paying online. So we really appreciate those customers.
As we move forward, and just so you know, I'm one of those people that pays. Just Tuesday past, you had an issue at your Blue Hill Road building. Number of staff members had to be, or would have seemingly come in contact with somebody who was potentially exposed. Can you update us on what has happened? Where are we with that?
One of the things that, when we started the program, the deferment program, we indicated to persons that if you fall in the categories, meaning you've lost your job, you've been quarantined because of COVID, or you are infected with COVID, that you can apply for that deferred benefit online. And we encourage people to not come into our offices. And what ended up happening was there was a customer who had come in. They were not infected, but the person that they were connected to was, and they were coming in to drop off their particular forms on that person's behalf.
They had been exposed.
Exactly. So what we did was, recognizing that this was an individual who would come in person to do that, we immediately went to safety protocols, and we shut down our operations. We made sure everything was cleaned and sanitized so we can open up the next day. So that was just a precaution for us. So I'd like to tell the public, no one who had tested positive for COVID came into the office. No one who had tested positive for COVID interacted with any of our employees. It was someone who we know had been in proximity to an infected person. And so
and
we
bottom
took the
line,
safety
should not have
precautions.
been in there.
Should not have been in there. So we encourage the public who are taking advantage of this deferment program to please do everything remotely and online.
So if I find myself either infected or I've been exposed and I'm now under quarantine, the first step is to call in?
Yes, you can call BPL. Our number is call BPL, CALL BPL. And then we can certainly give you instructions on how you can apply for that deferment benefit.
Okay, so it makes a lot of sense. Let's shift gears a little bit. You serve also as the chairman of the Technology Hub Committee?
That's correct.
Okay, which is a government initiative,
right,
which focuses on e-commerce and digitalization. Tell us about what that group is doing and how now in this environment you've become so much more relevant.
Exactly. So let me just set the stage really quickly. Back in 2017, the government had the first tech summit in Grand Bahama. And what came out of that was a realization that the government of the country of the Bahamas, we needed a third pillar in our economy. And the decision was made that technology would be ideal. So this particular group, the Technology Hub Committee, was formed, and I was asked to chair that group. And a part of that, our focus was looking at domestic technology market as well as international in terms of bringing in investors. On the domestic side, what we were discussing and made recommendations to the government around how do we establish a robust e-commerce, e-government, digitized economy. And so we made several recommendations to the government. And obviously we've been progressing those through. The government has made a number of legislative changes based on our recommendations. Obviously with Dorian that happened in the northern Bahamas and now with COVID-19, it's now making it more apparent that having some sort of an e-commerce infrastructure, being able to have a digitized economy is extremely important. One of the things that all of us recognize is that when you look at the vibrancy of an economy, it's based on people being able to conduct business. And if you're used to doing business face-to-face in a very physical way, when you run into issues like this, everything stops. Money stops flowing. But if you have an economy now that has an e-commerce infrastructure associated with it, you're still doing business, you're still moving money, you're still conducting commerce. And so what the government is doing, and I'm a part of a group now, is we're putting together a policy with respect to digitization in e-commerce. And so there are certain things that government entities and agencies are doing to make sure that they can offer e-commerce solution when it comes to transactions, when it comes to communications, when it comes to being able to allow people to work remotely. Those are the things now that we're focused on.
Does this now accelerate those plans? Are those government corporations or businesses now forced to get there a lot faster? Because as long as I can walk in and pay, and as long as I can do business as normal, nothing's forcing me to, I'm going to do it.
Yes, you're right. And that's a part of the policy that's being crafted now, where the government is looking at it, the entire economy holistically, and saying, okay, where can we actually provide digital solutions or e-commerce solutions in order to conduct business and commerce? And so what you would have seen is that there's a digitization roundtable that was actually created by the government. I'm a part of that roundtable as well. And it looked at various ways where the government services can be digitized. And so, for example, you see with a lot of government agencies now, you can do certain things online. I'm a part of the project that created the e-passport renewal. That's online now. We're also finishing up e-visa renewal. That's online. I happen to know that there's a project going on with the Registrar General and being able to register for your business online. If you look at inland revenue, you can file all of your inland reports online. You can pay everything online. And so the government is moving in that direction as well. But now everything is being accelerated.
Very quickly, had we not found ourselves in this crisis, would this process have still been moving at this pace?
Not at this pace, but it would have been moving, because I'm very well aware of a number of the initiatives that the government has undertaken. Now it's become apparent, not just at the government level, because remember, this started as a policy and a vision to create this third pillar in our economy. Now, rank and file Bahamians see and understand. If you're a business owner now,
it's a necessity.
Exactly. If you have a mom and pop shop, you have to be online. You have to be able to conduct commerce electronically.
And that's our silver lining. And I think that's one of the things that we've got to look at it, taking away from this. Before we go, you're also involved with a private grouping, Mobile Assist.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that and how this experience now has made you, that business and the work that you do so much more relevant.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's my day job, essentially. But I'm a part of, there's three companies that were licensed recently by the central bank to have mobile digital wallets. Mobile Assist, my company, is one of them. There's obviously Canoe, and then there's Suncash. And so these are digital platforms or commerce platforms which allows any business or organization to essentially establish an e-commerce presence essentially within an hour of hours. I know for our platform, we can get it done within 24 hours. And so now all of the e-commerce services, the communication services, the payment services, they're now all available via these platforms. And if you're a small shop or business and your focus is providing a certain product or service, you're not focused on that technology platform. These kinds of solutions that are purpose-built for the Bahamas are the ones that you need to look for. And we're certainly, more than willing to talk with any business or any consumer for that matter, because these are essentially mobile application platforms. And so everything now could be done right on your phone.
Mm-hmm. And how has that assisted us in this crisis?
What it's done, I know for our platform, we've seen a significant rise, first of all, in the downloads in terms of the number of persons that use the platforms. We've been talking with a number of businesses. We have over 70 businesses now enrolled in the platform. We're adding more and more every day. And so you have people that are conducting in our platform thousands of business transactions a day. And so they're now carrying on their business. And I would say that coming out of COVID-19, you really have to recognize that you have to look at a platform that's going to work for you from an e-commerce perspective.
Donovan, Moxey, thank you so much for coming on. I'm happy you gave us that assurance about the electricity for the summer. You had many, I don't have to tell you how many unhappy Bahamians you had last summer. Let's hope this time around that things are going to, we're going to have a much better summer, particularly in this crisis as the days start to warm up. Great information as well on the Technology Hub and Mobile Assist, one of the companies out there that have the digital wallets. Thank you very much. Great information as always. Appreciate you coming. Stay with us. Our show will continue. On the Record is back right after this.
Welcome to On the Record. Looking for more On the Record? If you miss our Thursday showing at 8 p.m., join us for the re-airing on Friday mornings at 10, and then again each Sunday night at 8:30. Or go to our YouTube channel and catch up on all of our past episodes. And then like our Facebook and Instagram pages for a preview of upcoming shows and get a chance to ask your questions. Just look for On the Record.
This portion of On the Record brought to you by Executive Printers of the Bahamas Limited. We print profits for you.
Welcome back to On the Record. This segment is made possible by Executive Printers. Prime Minister Hubert Minnis announcing in his most recent news conference that as of Friday, April 17th, the National Insurance Board processed over 14,600 unemployment claims and paid out approximately $7 million in unemployment benefits. NIB is said to be working to process an additional 5,000 applications, and there are more to come. My guest for this segment is the Director of the National Insurance Board, Dr. Nicola Virgill-Rolle. Welcome back to On the Record.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Good to have you in this role. Let's dive right in. Tell us about those who have been able to receive their contributions and benefits made available by the government under this emergency crisis.
So we recognize that the National Insurance Board had to really transform its operations in order to meet this demand. We typically take in about 1,500 or so applications per month, amounting to about 6,000, 7,000 or so per year. But we recognize that we would have about 18,000 applications coming in a short period of time. So we had to transform our operations. And so what we've done is we've worked with many of the major employers, and we've worked to develop a system where you can email in your applications, and so it's already in a digitized form for us to upload to our system. And so we've been able to process so many more with using a more digitized environment. And so we've gotten out to date now, we've processed almost 18,000 applications now. So we've moved ahead since the Prime Minister's announcement, amounting to about $8.5 or so million. And so it's been a very heavy lift, but I would like to thank the staff of the National Insurance Board who've really been working around the clock to make this happen.
You described it as a heavy lift. How quickly did you have to get these things in place, and what kinds of things did you have to employ almost immediately to be 18,000? That's a lot of things, a lot of folks to process.
Yes, and so we just had to meet as an executive team to think about our operations, think about what we're doing well, think about what wasn't working in order to transform the operation. So as I mentioned, we've been very paper-based in the past, and it's been very much come and visit us, submit your application in hard copy, we'll scan this application, we'll take your details, we'll call you back if anything is missing, and then we will process, and then call you back as well when we've done with the process. And so we had to just look at that whole stream of activities and say, well, we need to get these emailed into us as a first attempt, and we know we can do better. We can build portals as well, which we're working on, in order to process things faster. Now, we had to also administer another program, the Government Unemployment Assistance Program, which is separate from our benefits program. And so because that was a new program, within 6 days, our programmers in our IT department were able to stand up a fully operational portal, which even went beyond what we could do with our benefits program, because everything was already an online portal, digitized, and you interacted directly with our database.
Let's talk about the different contributions and benefits that are existing for those who've been affected by the crisis. I want to first talk about regular unemployment benefits.
Yes. So the regular unemployment benefit it's a benefit. It's something you've paid into as part of your contributions that you've paid into NIB. It's for employed persons, so self-employed persons are excluded from that benefit. And so it's something where you have paid 9.8% divided between employer and the employee, and it's a benefit that you've earned. It comes about because you've worked a sufficient amount of time. So 52 weeks is the minimum contribution, so you need to have been working to contribute to this. You've also worked 7 out of the last 13 weeks and 13 out of the last 26 weeks. And so we wanted something where you're recently in the system. So that's what it's designed for. And it looks, our system looks and makes sure that those eligibility requirements are there, and then it's able to process you and pay you 50% of your insurable wage. So the insurable wage ceiling is $670 per week, and so you are eligible for up to that amount, depending on what your salary is.
And those are the persons who are contributing?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So let's talk about government-funded unemployment assistance for self-employed persons.
So the government recognized that there are a whole number of persons who are not employed in terms of working for somebody else. They are self-employed entrepreneurs who are contributing to the economy but did not benefit from the unemployment benefit of NIB. And so the government set up a fund between $6 and $10 million in order to provide for unemployment assistance. It's $200 per week up to 8 weeks for persons in the tourism sector, and it's $200 per week during the shutdown for those who are outside of the tourism sector.
Okay, and finally, the unemployment benefit for self-employed persons.
Yes, so that's the self-employed one, which is part of
Right.
the assistance. So it is not something that you have paid into. This is additional to your what you've paid into national insurance. It is a true assistance, meaning that it's not something you've earned. It's a program created specifically by the government, paid for by the government out of additional tax dollars.
So a lot of these individuals who are receiving are non-contributors to NIB, correct?
Well, they may have contributed for self-employed persons. That's a category of worker that we have, and their self-employed persons are able to receive all of the other benefits with the exception of unemployment.
Okay.
And so they receive, maternity, retirement, and that's one of the
So
main.
normally they would not receive the unemployment.
Right.
Right. So this is a, and again, NIB has to now underwrite the cost of that.
No, the self-employed part is paid for by the government. It's part of tax dollars that come from the government treasury.
What if you have been laid off and your employer is not up to date with your contributions? Are you still eligible?
You are. And so all we ask is that the employer confirm that you worked for them. That's why the importance of the B80, the layoff certificate, is so important, because it is an attestation that you worked for them, you were laid off, this is the date you were laid off, this is what you were paid, and so we can confirm that. And so we do ask for that in addition to the claim form. And also, it's important to get your CTANs. So the CTAN is the contribution statement. So every employer files one of those every month. And it gives the listing of their employees, how much they make, and the periods that they were employed. And so that's an important detail for us in calculating the insurable wage. So recall, we look at the average insurable wage in calculating how much we should pay you for any benefit. And so we need that information in order to make that calculation. So if that is not in, then we can't make that calculation easily. And so that's why it's been imperative for us to go out and use our compliance arm in order to get that information.
Are regular payments still being handled as well for things like pension, sickness, survivors benefits?
Yeah, so employers who have employees are still required to make payments. And so that's still coming in. Of course, so many people have been laid off. We expect a downturn there of several tens of millions, also to be affected, about 30 million down, we expect. In terms of other types of benefits, we're still paying those. So each month we pay out retirement benefits, invalidity benefits. We have the regular funeral benefits and maternity benefits, sickness benefits that still must be paid. And so we have teams still working on those benefits as well.
That 30 million shortfall, that's over what period?
We're looking over this year. So as we projected in terms of this crisis, so our actuarial department and our investment department, we worked to see what we expected in terms of additional payouts. And so we budgeted around 16 million per month in terms of unplanned expenditure. And then we looked at what we may not take in terms of the shortfall in terms of contributions income over the year for this to adjust to the downturn in the economy.
You would have admitted NIB has been a paper-based organization for such a long time. Bring in your applications, come back for your checks. You can't do that anymore.
No.
How have you been able now to satisfy these payments, these millions of dollars that you have to make, that people are really relying on just to survive?
Yes. So we recognize the unemployment process was a check-based operation. We do certain validations. There are certain requirements. You have to be in the Bahamas, for example, to benefit from unemployment. And so we offered up until March, you had to come in for a check. But that didn't work for a COVID-19 environment and the additional amounts of persons. Imagine if 17,000 persons had to come to NIB once per month. And so we automatically changed and said, you know what? We changed our form to allow you to put in banking information. And so now we've been able to pay you through direct deposit. In the first instance, if you are unbanked or you choose otherwise, we also have partnered with SunCash to pay you digitally as well. So a voucher is issued, it goes to your phone. You have digital cash that you can use in a variety of stores. And so that's been an important way to ensure that we can pay you safely even if you do not have a bank account.
And I just wanted to confirm as well, give us just an idea, some of the types of stores where these vouchers on your phone vouchers
Right.
are
So
redeemable?
there's a great network, and so what we're seeing throughout all of these money services businesses, they're creating networks so that you don't have to come into their business places to redeem it for cash. You have that option, but you can also use it at many grocery stores, at pharmacies, to pay your utility bills. That's places you can use these digital currencies, which are on your phone. At the point of sale, they scan your phone, and the amount that you would have paid comes off what's on your balance, and then you can see the transactions and you can see what you've done with your funds much more easily than with cash.
Is this the way forward?
We think so. We would like to continue to move in that direction. NIB had developed a 5-year strategic plan in which the movement away from checks was a critical part of that. Movement towards digital payments was also critical in order to make our operations much more efficient.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, and I asked this of my last guest, had we not found ourselves in this position with COVID-19, would you have moved to this platform so rapidly?
No, I think we looked at this as a 2-year horizon to move to this point. Mm-hmm. We've had to do it in a month. And I think that that's been very helpful for the operations. I think that, we've had to do it in a period of crisis. And so it's been complicated, but I think now everyone can see the advantage of it. I think we've pushed the economy, the country ahead. Up, when we first started, for example, our online applications, we had so many calls and questions about how do I fill out and sign a form digitally if I don't have a printer, if I don't have a scanner. We don't see those questions as much anymore. People have figured out how to do that now. And so, we're seeing this forward movement in terms of digital literacy in the country, which is very important.
You still have a segment of the population that, for whatever reason, cannot and will not come on as readily as many others. My generation, the 40 and up, we're sort of right there on the cusp. But you've got a lot of pensioners and older folks who just are not computer savvy. They're not digital savvy. They will not enter that world. How are you accommodating those folks?
Well, we'll always be able to assist them. I think our demographic, who we help, our pensioners, are generally older. They're 60 and older. But even that group, we're seeing a demand for better service and an acceptance of new ways of doing things. And so, we've been looking at ways, to deal with verifications. Do you need to come to NIB to verify proof of life, things like that, and offering them other ways. So it may be telephone, it may be different ways in order to verify, so you don't have to make that write-up. That was one of the first services we suspended because we didn't want to put our elderly clients in an environment where they would be around many others. And so now there are new ways of verifying, which has been accepted.
You have become such an essential service to this country and keeping a lot of people alive and afloat. How are your employees doing?
Our employers are just super. It's been heavy and hard on them. We hear from them and they're working round the clock. Of course, having to come into work, their natural fares with all of that. But I've never seen such a great NIB spirit, and I think many of our employees, they know what NIB is about. They know that we're here to serve you when you cannot work for yourself. We're here to do that, and I think that they embody that spirit, and there's a true want and a desire to see people made right. And I just want to thank them for that, because they keep me going because of their spirit.
I understand many of them even work through the Easter holidays.
Yes. No matter what time emails were coming in, no matter what time I was sending out emails, people were responding. And people just wanted to see the backlog process, because I think we all understand that, how daunting it could be if you've lost your income and you don't see what's happening. And we know we can help you.
How much of these operations have been moved to home base? How many of your people are working from home?
So we set up a ABC rotation, and we immediately got about 130 laptops. We have a staff of 600 in order to enable persons to work from home or rotate in. And so at any point in time, there's only about a third of our staff in office. We wanted to make sure they were well spaced and so that they can work comfortably and feel comfortable. And so many of our processes are digitized anyway, and so they were able to work from home. Our drug plan, for example, has been, which deals with the National Prescription Drug Service, has always been digital. So we've always been able to allow our pharmacists to work from home because they have to cover people on the weekends. And so we've been able to transition many of our operations now and working remotely quite smoothly.
This is changing the way we live, changing the way we do business. At the end of all of this, is NIB going to be a better place? I think so. I think we have, through pushing technology, we are going to be much more able to work efficiently, more and quickly. And so there's the push that had to happen, then the necessity, for example, to have digitized C10 forms, the contribution statements, enables us to process those much more quickly. In the past, we had to hand type. You would have staff members typing in hundreds of names into our system. And so now just by pushing, send it in Excel so that we can automatically upload that to the system, we can process those things much more quickly now. So I think we're going to see a lot of positives generating out of this very unfortunate situation. Dr. Nicola Virgill-Rolle, I want to thank you for the, on behalf of the Bahamian people, for the work that NIB is doing.
Thank you.
You've become such an essential service to this country and to the people, and we appreciate you. Thank you, and thank you to the many employees there who are working so hard, as you've said, and are really in there and keeping us going. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Nibbers.
Okay. Stay with us. We've got a final segment coming up. We're going to look at another aspect of how business is changing in the Bahamas. Stay with us. We're back right after this. Hello and welcome to On the Record, and the balanced, true and open debate you've been looking for. Welcome back. You're watching the final segment of On the Record. This segment is brought to you by private business contractors. In the past few weeks, we've come to rely on technology in ways unseen. Thousands of students are now in virtual classes, and the work from home option is now a necessity for many of us. But what good is technology without a good online connection? My final guest is the president and CEO of the nation's premier nation's communications provider of choice for cable TV as well as broadband, voice and cellular service. He is the head of Cable Bahamas, Mr. Franklyn Butler. Thank you so very much for joining us. This is a very dubious spot, I have to tell you. Whenever you have to interview your boss, I guess very interesting.
Jerome, you're a professional.
Yeah, we're
the best in the business, right?
Yes, sir. So let's go at it. Let's talk a little bit first, sir, about this digital transformation that Cable Bahamas has had to undergo. What people don't know is, you began this journey with us far ahead, I think, of everyone else. I remember that day you called managers in, when COVID-19 was still a possibility and put us on guard that things were about to start. And I think for the first time, so many of us here, it became a reality. But so much has happened between now and then. Let's talk about the transformation that we've had to undergo here.
Yep. So, Jerome, first of all, thank you. It's a pleasure to be on the show. Funny enough, this is my first time here.
Not that I haven't asked you before.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
All right.
But it's a real pleasure to be here. So, Jerome, as you know, on February 28th, I remember I was just reviewing my calendar. I just became very aware that COVID-19 was very real. We had lots of countries around the world not sure whether COVID-19 was real or whether it was just a flu or not. But for me, I had an experience where my mother and my brother had just traveled from Switzerland. And they'd come back and said, listen, don't take this thing for granted, man. They're asking you what car rental you came from, what hotels you were in. This was very real for me. And so I really used that as an opportunity to say to our team in this organization, listen, I think we're in for a rude awakening. Let's not take this for granted. We need to think about what are our plans going to be very early on in the discussion. And so that's when I encouraged our team to say, listen, don't wait for the Prime Minister to announce that we have our first case. We need to be proactive. Go and get your hand sanitizers, everything that you need to protect yourselves, to protect the office, to protect all of our staff in our organization, because I said by the time the Prime Minister announces it, we're going to have widespread panic, and we will not be able to leave our businesses because we are an essential services. We need to be prepared to serve. And that was exactly what transpired, Jerome. And ever since then, we've been working assiduously, as you know. I just looked at a report. We have 360 people that work in our offices on a regular basis. Today, we've got less than 30 people in offices working. Everybody else is working from home, remotely, whether that's in our contact center, whether that's in our sales teams. Everybody is engineers are working remotely as well, managing our network. So we have risen to the occasion, and I'm very, very proud to be the leader of the most incredible team. I've seen team members who have said, listen, man, we appreciate that while we're losing customers due to the impact of tourism and the complete shutdown, we have had people who have really stepped up and said, listen, we're going to do all we can to make sure that this country remains connected. And I'll be the first to admit, we haven't been perfect. I mean, what I'd like to just share with your listeners is, as a telecoms provider, when people work from home, it requires upload speeds, not download speeds. Our focus from a network productivity has really been around downloads, making sure you can have the fastest internet, making sure that you're able to go to your websites and read content, which is like basketball and that type of stuff. However, when you're using Zoom and these work from home platforms, you need upload bandwidth. And that is where we've been challenged as an organization. But I'm pleased to announce that we've done lots of node splits, and so we've been taking that feedback directly from the contact center and directly from our network KPIs, and really making sure that in spite of the lockdowns that we've had, to make sure we're doing the upgrades to the network and improving our service. And we're committed to that. If you're having services, please contact us. I've been on the call queues myself trying to make sure that while people are working from home, we maintain our standards of excellence as an organization.
Two things. We've gone from a business that's been taking in cash in stores. That stopped.
That's correct, Jerome. A lot of people may not be aware. The facts are we have over 40,000 customers that walk in to pay their bills. Wow. That is an incredible amount. That's more than 2/3 of our customer base that walk into our stores. And so the emergency order for us had a material impact on the way we do business. So what have we done? Jerome, our focus has been on how do we get people to use credit cards and debit cards to pay? How do we sign up for my Rev account online using what we call our online portal? How do we take credit cards via our contact center? And I have to say, the Bahamian people have responded tremendously and have done a fantastic job of making sure those who have been able to use our online platforms. I mean, in addition to our My Rev account, which is my.rev.bs, so please go and sign up if you're not on it. We've also signed partnerships with SunCash and, of course, Cash and Go to receive cash payments as well. And in addition to that, we have some exciting stuff to come, Jerome, where you're going to be able to use on the My Alive app. You're going to be able to pay your cable bill as well. So this is just an exciting time of transformation as an organization. And we've used COVID-19 just to do things differently. And this is, as I shared in a recent video to all our employees, this is an exciting time to be a leader, because when you can lead transformation, you really don't know where you're going. But it's really incredible to kind of explore the unknown. It really takes you out of your comfort zone.
I have to ask as well, as I asked Donovan Moxey from BPL, we're all at home.
Yep.
We're watching TV all day. We're on the internet all day. Some of us are working. What kinds of adjustments have you had to make on the network to accommodate that amount of traffic?
So let me say, the things that we had to do was, obviously, now that people are working from home, you have to remember your patterns have changed. Typically, people work late at night. But what we found is we now have children, parents at home, everybody working from home, which means that we have more capacity demand on different nodes in our network. And so what we found is that we've been having to focus on where congestion is now, that people are working from home, which didn't necessarily exist before. Mm-hmm. And we're having to make those tweaks to our network on a daily basis. This is something that we can't do once a week. This is something that every week we are seeing new hotspots where people are, using additional capacity. We are seeing a lot of people come back into the network as well. So we have a lot of restarts of customers who have said, listen, I really need to have my connectivity now that my children are home, now that my college students have come back from university. So now that we have these restarts, we're seeing our capacity patterns change. And so we've been making the adjustments to the network, whether that's wirelessly and on the fixed side, to make sure that we are providing the best service that we can.
You mentioned children. One of the services that you've been able to provide on the cable TV side is the implementation of the Bahamas Learning Channel. Tell us about that and why that was such an important work for the company.
Well, Jerome, a lot of people may not understand that from an organization perspective, when I took over as CEO, we set a vision to be the leader in enabling connected lifestyles and experiences. And a part of our mission for this year was really about transforming now. And transforming now for us was built on this idea of digital transformation within our organization. And as we started to transition from February 28th to now, what we found is that we had a lot of our employees who were happy to work from home. I mean, we did a workforce study survey that says 95% of our employees enjoy working from home. They found the transformation that we've gone through to be, while in some instances challenging, they can live with it. They were comfortable with the way we managed the process. And I said to our team, listen, what's the point of transforming as an organization if we can't transform our communities, if we can't transform our government? And so immediately I spoke to our head of business solutions who said, listen, there's an opportunity with education, they're challenged. I said, let's get on it. Anything we can do. And I spoke with Minister Jeff Lloyd, who I think was recently on another show that you hosted this month. And I said to him, Jeff, what do we need to do to help you? He said, listen, we wanted to get education going. And so we did everything we can. We moved heaven and earth as the organization, and every employee really stepped up and said, listen, we're going to get this learning channel. If we had to help with editing of the content that the ministry had, we committed to do that. We made sure that we have the learning channel also on 295 and soon to be 296. But when those channels didn't exist in the Bahamas, we put it on our TV as well to make sure that those remote islands who are on the Lifeline service that we provide, which is 6 channels in some of the remote family islands. And so we did all we can to make sure that education is able to continue. And I feel that that's a responsibility of leadership, to make sure that those who are at the periphery of our communities and society are able to make sure that they are able to be educated and have all that we have here in the main islands.
And congratulations to the team. I mean, I was in on some of those discussions. It was amazing work, and I've got to say, not just because they're my colleagues, but amazing work done to get that channel up in record time. This whole experience has been to the detriment of a lot of people. Not so long ago, the company had to lay off some folks. I want to talk about what that was like, what precipitated that, and how, going forward, what will happen once we are past all of this.
Sure. So, Jerome, as you would appreciate, we were faced with some things that just happened very quickly. I talk about the 40,000 customers that come into our retail stores. In the first emergency order, the Prime Minister announced that, listen, we couldn't have any retail stores for customers to interact with us. Mm-hmm. You would imagine, if you think about the retail platform that we have with stores in Grand Bahama, as well as in the mall, when you're not able to keep those people engaged, it's a very difficult circumstance for me to make. I mean, while I am CEO, I'm not one that sits in my lofty office, so I know a lot of these people personally. Sure. I've interacted with the stores. I mean, every time there's a crisis, I try to make myself available to make sure I lead, not just send orders and instructions. So for me, Jerome, we try to deploy many of these resources into our contact centers, into other areas of the business as well, but we just couldn't redeploy everybody. And we felt it was best for us as an organization to lay off those employees, and best for them as well, because at least they're able to get unemployment benefit. And as you know, all of the executives in our leadership took pay cuts to allow, in addition to the unemployment benefit, a gratuity of an extra $200 a week, which we thought was more helpful than just terminating these employees with nothing.
So they're still getting an extra $200 from the...
So no employee who's been terminated or laid off from Cable Bahamas is getting less than $400 a week. I think that's the story that people don't appreciate. $200 of it is a gratuity that the executives took direct pay cuts towards these employees being able to have basic sustenance and needs over the 12-week or however long period the layoffs extend for. And, you know, what we will look for, Jerome, is depending on when the emergency orders are lifted, we will look to see what additional resources we can redeploy in the business. But there's no doubt that our business has been impacted by the closure of the tourist and the tourism sector, and we're not able to determine when that'll come back. That's the big question that the government and everybody who's a citizen of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas is concerned about.
And nobody has the answer to.
Exactly.
People ask me all the time, I don't know. I don't think that there's an answer. I want to speak now to Emergency Powers COVID-19 Amendment Order, Section 14, released just this week. Speaks to people's ability to pay.
Correct.
Relative to BTC and Cable Bahamas. This applies only to people who are unable to pay as a result of termination of their employment or unable to access electronic or any other remote means to pay bill. It doesn't apply to any person whose employment has been terminated and who prior to the announcement of this public emergency has paid a bill electronically. In essence, if I cannot pay,
correct,
what happens?
So if you cannot pay, we will not terminate your service as long as you come in and have that conversation with us and explain and provide the right documentary evidence that the emergency order speaks to.
If I can't come in.
So I will tell you what we are able to do.
Sure.
We have WhatsApp support, so if you can't come in, you can contact our contact center by dialing the number. You can go on Facebook and message our live chat. You can go onto our website and use live chat. You can go onto WhatsApp and WhatsApp us. We have all those numbers and ways of which you're able to communicate with us as an organization. We're a technology company, Jerome. Any way you want to communicate with us, we are able to communicate with you. You can send a copy of your layoff letter or your termination letter, and we will do all we can to work with you as a customer to make sure that you can keep some type of lifeline service on during the period of the next 60 days, which the order covers.
And you look at I'm sorry, first of all, this is for those who cannot pay, not for those who don't want to pay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I just want to highlight, I think you had Donovan on, and everybody knows, and this was a little bit of a fear that we had as a leadership team when the order was placed. The reality is we don't want consumers to do what they did to BPL, which is people say, listen, I just ain't gonna pay my bill. This is really intended to be a support. As a CEO, we are happy to work with all of our customers. This is not something where we're trying to cut off people, but we need people to be honest. We need people to come in and speak with us, be open and transparent around what you can do or what you cannot do. But as you know, Jerome, there will be those who will take advantage of these type of opportunities, which we want to mitigate against. But those who have real needs, we are going to do all we can. I wish to add, we would not be doing all we can to support the Ministry of Education, whether that's with the Learning Channel, with tablets for connectivity to those who are underprivileged and wanting to cut off people's connectivity. However, we are trying to manage our business. We are trying to make sure that we could provide the level of connectivity, the level of support. We've got employees, over 600 employees that we have on staff. We have to make our commitments as well and to strike this balance in helping our customers in a time of need. And that is all we're after, Jerome. We're not trying to see if we could disconnect the entire country. This is a time when our customers need us, and we're going to be working with them.
And I'm so happy you said that. We really, I'm an employee, but I really rely on the service. I obviously have got to work, I've got to be connected, but I've also got to keep up with what's going on.
Absolutely.
I'm watching what's happening around the world, I'm watching what's happening locally, so we appreciate the service. Franklyn, we're out of time. I'm sorry, I wanted to give you more time, but they tell me it doesn't matter. You're the CEO here, we got to cut. No, we're out of time.
Absolutely.
But thank you for the great work that you're doing, on behalf of the employees and on behalf of the Bahamian people. Thank you so very much for leading the company at a time like this. Very quickly, is this really going to continue to change the way Cable Bahamas operates?
I think the changes, we had an executive call. The changes that we have made, I think, are here to stay. The good news is our employees seem to be excited about those changes. They like the flexibility of working from home. We know we're going to have to make some tweaks. We're going to continue to survey and get feedback from our employees, but this is going to be a new Bahamas post-COVID-19.
I just want you to know, I'm looking forward to coming back to work.
We look forward to having you.
I miss some of my colleagues. Thank you very much. We're going to take a break and wrap up right after this. Stay with us.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. project really pays itself back.
Correct.
They set up
At the conference, the school.
As a journalist, I always have to focus on the facts, and sometimes that means going to investigate for myself. On the Record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. right here on RTV.
That's going to do it for tonight's episode. Special thanks to my guests tonight, Dr. Donovan Moxey, Dr. Nicola Virgill-Rolle, and Mr. Franklyn Butler, as well as to my production and technical teams. Of course, a very special thank you to our viewers as well. Stay informed with the latest news and information on this network, our News Nightly, and our News Bahamas on Facebook. Stay safe. Until next time, same place, same time. We'll see you on the Record.